welcome to everybody's favorite day of the week. It is Thursday, day 4 with the man, Mr. Frank Scalish, joined by the dude that's basically living out of a suitcase for the next month, Matthew Pangrack. What's up, Matt?
I don't know where I am. Like, I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, there are 1,000 islands here.
I see a new shirt. I see a new shirt on the horizon.
The comment was not that funny. What was funny, folks, in case you're listening to the podcast, is Matt's phone fell down right when he made that statement.
I think just logged off. Just a mic drop. You guys have just been like, well, that was interesting.
Yeah, now you're freezing up, man.
It's the no freeze zone.
How am I freezing up? I had good service.
Yeah.
Am I good now?
I'm freezing up a little bit.
So
yeah,
let me.
Up?
No.
Yeah, no, you're good now.
So let me ask you a question, dude. Aren't you just dying to go make another cast?
I am. That's why I gave myself 12 days. I mean, there was a definite reason for it, and I wanted to get the vacation, oh my gosh, it's a 4-pound smallmouth out of my system so I could focus on business for the tournament, because I've always thought that up here, the hardest part is treating it, like a tournament like you would on Grand or TA fishery, because you get on that and it's just like, let's go do work, and you get up here and you're like, there's a loon, a school of perch, let's cut a bait in half and catch one of those, and you know what I mean? There's just distractions up here. And so I'm trying to get the distractions out. And then the other thing is, Lake Ontario's open. I'm not super familiar with it. So I've wanted to, that guy's got one over there. He's hooked up. There's a perch boat about 200 yards away. I had to turn the volume down because they're out here on, scenic and stuff. And then Jeffries plays the intro music, and it's like a death metal concert out here.
It is not.
Anyway, so I wanted to learn how to run those big waves, build the live wells up, figure out how to navigate it, go out in some sketchy stuff where I still felt safe, and make sure it wasn't like day one of the Derby where I was like, oh God, this is not, they got the net out now.
Uh-oh. Matt's giving us a live on the water.
I used to do this with Harold all the time. That was my job. Harold would drive and I would be like, he's hooked up, looks like a solid fish off the end of this rock point.
Can you show us? Would it show up?
It's a long way away. I don't know if
is it? Oh no, we can't see that.
Yeah,
no,
but they're out there. They're anchored. No one's landing yet, so it must not be a giant.
It is beautiful over there too. I love that place.
It is. So here's the crazy thing. I'm like on this like, can you see that? It's like
island
and everything, and then there's like bam, house, house. So how did they do the sewage on those places?
They ferry over.
Really?
Yeah.
You can't have a septic tank, can you, Frank, in the rock like that?
Oh God, hell if I know.
So what do they do? You don't have a house this nice and then go use an outhouse.
No, they have something.
They go under the water.
They probably have. They got to have septic on the island. They have to.
Looking for some current on a crap pipe and haven't found it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's with a P, not a CK. Like crap pipe.
Did you really just say that?
That's how you almost won the college national championship, Mark.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And I fishing the crap pipe.
I know exactly what you're saying, dude.
Wow.
All the crayfish gather around those things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right, Matt, do this. Give the fans an update. A lot of people are following you. A lot of people want to know what's going on, and then we'll let you get back to business.
It's a really cool fishery. The only problem, the lake's open. We're going out of Clayton. The FLW was there. You saw the weights that the Toyota series had, but that was out of, I believe, Messina. It was a 140, 150 mile run for those guys. I mean, like 150, 160. I think it's like 80 miles one way to get where a lot of the guys in the top 10 were. Some of the guys stayed in the river. You have a ton of options here. I will say this, and I told Frank this before I got on air. It is very easy to catch 23 pounds here. It is also very easy to catch 14 to 16 here. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how do you, and it because they're guys who guarantee their consistency. They always come in, look at the Johnsons and Lucas and Bertrand and all these guys that always come in with that over 20 mark. And right now I'm trying to figure out how to maintain that consistency. Because, yeah, I've run out and I've had 23, 24-pound days. But, like, yesterday I did, like, 17 or 18 and fished daylight to dark and was like, I don't know why that didn't happen.
But because here, look, in the tournament, you're only going to run to spots where you caught 4-pounders or better.
Right.
And so your chances of coming in with over 20 are much better.
Okay.
In practice, you're looking around. So you may have one spot that's got good ones on it. And I say good ones, I mean 4-pounders or better. You might go somewhere else and there's a lot of 2.5-pounders and 3-pounders. So in the tournament, that becomes like a C+ spot. Like that's an emergency stop. You know what I mean? To get if you need a limit. When I fish the Great Lakes, I don't even make a stop on places I didn't catch 4-pounders or better. That's the whole trick to the game. And sometimes it means you're making a run. You know, you're making a run to go from 4-pounder to 4-pounder. I don't like. I label all my waypoints when I'm fishing for smallmouth, dude. 5-pounders, 4-pounders, 3-pounders, and then everything else is a C to a D. Okay. And I only run to a C or a D spot if I gotta have a fish.
Okay, so on my waypoints, I'm putting the date, so it'd say like SCP-1 and then a space and then like 4.62.
Right.
So then every time I catch one over 4, I mark a heart and I put the weight and the date that I caught it on. And since I'm only throwing a drop shot, it's obvious what I caught it on.
Right. But here's the thing. You can't burn a spot up with 4-pounders. You got to catch a couple and leave. You know there's more there. And then that's how to manage that during the tournament to assure you're going to come in with over 20. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you won't.
It's very easy once you find where they are in the lake to catch them.
That's I
would suggest, like, if you are going to come up here, and I know there's a ton of good guides here. I'm buddies with Travis Manson, who guides up here, probably 50. Like, if I was gonna come up here and wasn't like a seasoned angler up here, I would 100% it would be worth the money for the guide trip. Because you've got a guy who knows whether it's safe or not. I mean, dude, it's like on me. Like, I mean, I'm at the mouth of the river there, and it's rolling. And I mean, I'm trying to say this in a clean way, but like, I'm like, do you just have to have a set and go, or is it dumb to go? Like, there's a fine line between it's safe, but you have to kind of man up and take it and learn how to do it, and that's unsafe, and I shouldn't go out there. And that's a weird line to try to, when there's like not a go angler here when you're practicing. I mean, it's literally your decision, because once you're out in it, you're out in it.
Yeah, there's no turning back.
Coming up, you have a guide who can take you to the spots where the fish are, because your goal would be to come up and catch fish and keep you safe. So, I mean, this is one of those spots that, there's a ton of fish and you can catch some, but I think if you're not up here for a long time and really trying to learn it and have a tournament, hire a dang guide. Fair point?
Yeah, totally fair point. The big lake the big Great Lakes are nothing to monkey with in a bass boat. Yeah. And if you have a lot of uncomfort, then you shouldn't go out there because you'll get in trouble. But you know, and I know that the bass boats are made to float. Most of the time when guys get in trouble, it's driver error.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had, I was out there and they weren't big 4 or 5 footers. But I think I was telling Mark this. I was like, I got up on like top of some, and I was like looking down on the bass boat, and I was like, that's like a 6 or 7 foot drop to the bottom of that deal. And then like when you're riding them back in, you get cat a corner on top of them, and it feels like you're on like the second story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you're looking down, you're like, man, that's like a free fall, like 5 or 6 foot. If I like fall out of the boat right now, it's just weird when you get on top of them, because you're like way the hell up there, you know?
You're on top of them, man. And it is. Cool. It is very cool, because here, look, they measure a wave height from the flat lake to the top of the wave. But you got to understand, as much as there is there, there's 3/4 down too. So that wave is even bigger. When you're on top of it, it looks even bigger. You know what I mean? Because you got a little bit more to the trough than you think. But just be careful, dude. Be careful. Don't be in a hurry. And you'll be fine. You got the boat to handle it.
Screws and bolts and nuts and stuff that I found on my front deck after I've run. I was wondering if I could show them to you, and you could maybe know if you know what it hold on a second, dude.
That's so funny, dude. Welcome to the Great Lakes.
This came off of my trolling motor somewhere. I have no idea. Like screws on one end.
That's like a spacer. It's a spacer, isn't it, Frank?
Yeah, I think if it came off the trolling motor, it's probably... What trolling motor are you running?
An Ultrex. I have no idea where it goes.
Isn't that the spacer for the nut underneath? Sometimes, depending on what
that
the
almost
thickness?
looks like when you put the trolling motor down, it goes on top of so it rests on the bracket.
Anyway.
Yeah, you got to find where tonight when you get in, you got to find out.
It's been off for 4 days, so
okay,
longer than that, probably since I got here, and then I've got another. Well, I got an assortment of stuff that come off. But, no, I'm tightening it and checking all that stuff, and it's fun.
It's a good time, man.
Just about 7 inches of water as a 401. So I also am learning, because I'm gonna have to do a lot of culling here, right? So I got the 18 gauge needle with the wire that goes through it.
Right, you have to have the wire.
3 down, and then with the dorsal fin, there's actually a little hump you can see on those fish. Kind of go in and then boom, straight down, and you can actually see or hear the air coming out. So I'm learning. I've done that on 5 or 6 of them just to try to make sure they swim right. I got my new scale that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I can call and drop. Because I just with that, I think it's kind of important out here to have that whole system down. And then here's the other thing. What do you put in the box? So you look at the weights, what it's going to take. If you catch a 2.5 pounder out of 30 foot, do you box that thing and then risk it dying? That's literally going to be like a 2-pound penalty. You can't have a 2.5 pounder in your bag to do well in this tournament. But then what if you only get 6 bites and 4 of them are 5 pounders and you chuck back at 2.5?
Well, that's the decision you make towards the end of the day on some of your C spots. Because here, look, dude, I did that in Buffalo, and I had a 2.5 pounder die, and I was throwing away 3 10s.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get rid of the 2.5, and I wasn't, and I let the first 2 or 3 limits go because they weren't big enough, and
they're hooked up. Sorry.
And it almost cost me. I won the event, but only by 5 ounces.
So you will toss back fish before you have a limit on the smallmouth fisheries, depending on your level of confidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, here's the next question. You can answer this. It almost appears like some of the fish that I'm catching up deeper, and they're healthy and they swim back down and I do it, but it appears as though they're hemorrhaging from the gills a little bit. There's just some light red coming off of each side of their gill plate when you bring them up. Have you ever experienced that?
No, not that I've ever noticed. To be honest with you, if I hook them funny, I know that they're bleeding.
This is coming out, and I don't know if it's the drop shot line getting wrapped around, but it's happening from 20 to 50 foot. Not all of them either, some of them, and I don't understand why that's happening. They're very healthy. They swim off. I think they're fine, but the only thing I could think of was hemorrhaging.
Yeah, and it's a possibility. The only thing I do is what I found out is that when I start getting past that 25-foot range, fish need to be fizzed. That's when you start running into problems. And when I start catching them in the 40-foot stuff, most of those fish are going to have issues. So, I only target those deep fish when I'm fishing for the big money,
right? Because
I don't want to hurt them all. But, you're going to have to do what you have to do because this is a Bassmaster event. Your future rides on it. Okay. So you got to catch what you got to catch. You know what I mean? No pressure, Matt.
Anyway, those are all my questions, Frank.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, by the way, here, let's see. I don't know if you can read this or not. Gene Gilliland was actually, he's on and was watching. Let's see here. Yeah. How is Matt's fizzing game? Barb Elliott will be offering training in Clayton during next week practice days.
Awesome. I got the diagram of the fish, or I'm supposed to do it. I've done it on probably 8 to 10 of them now, some of them for practice, some of them because it needed it. And I feel very confident that I mean, obviously you're sticking a needle in a fish. You're like, I'm not so sure about this, but I have gotten it to where I'm very confident that I can find where and how I'm supposed to do it. And I'll continue to do it throughout practice, but definitely it helps. I mean, you can see the bubbles coming up out of them.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as that starts to slow down, you pull it out. It takes them a little bit while and they'll right themselves. I've thrown a couple in the box to see how they react, not for more than 30 minutes, and official practice doesn't start until this upcoming Monday, so I can do whatever I want with them. But yeah, that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to come up here, was to get confidence. And when I'm out there in the rollers and money's on the line, boom, I can put them in, I can fizz them, I can maintain the health of those fish. Also, just based on some of the smallmouth guys I've talked to, super cold water, I've got the catch and release, and then leave yourself enough time so you're not beating the crap out of them.
Well, yeah, and you got to leave yourself enough time because...
That sounds good, Gene? Is that right, Gene? Is that a fair assessment on how to take care of them?
I am not Gene, but I will say yes.
Yeah. That one looks big. He's fighting the heck out of that one.
Nice. Hey, by the way, Matt, I will be sending you a PayPal invoice for $150 for a session in the locker room with Frank Scalish today. So... That was suggested by a fan, not me, and I was like, "Hey, that's a pretty good idea there."
That's just what you want right now.
Nah, man, a lot of people pulling for you. Obviously, a lot of time up there. I think it's a good move, and we'll be watching, man. So the action starts next week, right? Next Thursday.
Next Thursday. I've caught 2 over 6.
That's fantastic, dude.
That's crazy.
I'm jealous beyond belief right now.
The first one happened. I jumped on Travis. So Travis, I was like, dude, I want to catch some perch. And Travis is like, dude, I know where the perch are. So we go to this spot. And it's me, Epic Eric, and Travis. And we've got some perch in the box. And then he's like, yo, I got a smallmouth spot over here. You want to catch one? I want to check it, but it's over a week out, so we can catch one off of it. And I was like, I don't care. Sure. He's like, pull one of them rods out. And we roll about a half a mile, and he's like, cast over there. First cast, bait hits the bottom. Dunk, 6-4. Never made another cast. We literally were perch fishing. Travis said, oh, yeah, I've got a spot over here. Made one cast, caught a 6-4, put the bass rods up, went right back to
perching.
And I was like, dude, does that really count? That counts like 50%. Like, it still counts, but it's not the same as doing it by yourself, right? I mean, I'd have never caught that fish.
Well, but you caught him.
Yeah.
So the next morning, I go out by myself, totally different section of the river, right? Totally different section. And, like, my 5th drop, I hook one. And I'm like, because the guy you're out with that kind of shows you how to catch, he kind of owns you if you have you have your PB with him. Like
I know he does.
Like that 6-4, that was all me. So I hook one and it jumps, and I'm like, dude, I might only have this PB for like 15 hours, but it was only a 601.
So what you're saying is Travis still owns you.
Travis still owns.
Yeah. All right. Here's Gene's response. Matt said, yes, but ice in moderation. Keep water no more than 10 degrees below the lake temp.
So I'll keep it at around 64. So I need to get a thermometer.
Yeah, I had a temp gauge put in my live well.
Real? That's big league.
Yeah, so you can see it on your graph.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff, man. A lot of people, as I mentioned, a lot of people going to be watching you. So do well, dude.
Good luck, dude. I mean, I'm pulling for you big time.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm pulling for me, too.
Hey, I think Gene is actually going to be in the studio next week. I think he's the guest host.
Okay.
Beginning on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we will check back in, hopefully,
and then
on Wednesday.
So, like, we have this week, whatever, this Thursday, and then next week. But then the next week I'll be back because I'm flying back for the week.
Oh, okay. I had no idea. All right. That's right. Yeah.
I have to have some stability.
You got to have some stability in an unstable world.
Yeah. All right. Very
What do you
nice,
think one of
man.
these houses out here cost?
Well, I'm almost 100% sure they own that rock behind you. So
Yeah.
I would say a lot of money.
So when I was looking for a place up here, you can rent one of those castles for like $1,000 a night, and it sleeps like 14 people. So like if we
Jeez.
come up here again, there's some around the Clayton area. Dude, for $10,000, you can get a castle for 10 days, and then everyone just pitches in like $700-800. If you get like 6 boaters and their co-anglers, that's 12. You just get gas on the water. You park your truck over in Clayton because the only way to get there is by boat, and you literally live on a castle on the lake with a moat for less than $100 for 10 days.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Would you not do that?
I don't know.
I mean, it's
I don't.
like they have their own boathouses and docks and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate in the summertime, but late in the fall, I wouldn't do it. It's too much stuff could happen with the weather over there.
I hear you. All right, well, have a good show, guys.
All right, man.
Hey, dude, good luck to you, man. I swear to God.
Best of luck, dude. I'll be
through my head for the last 5 days.
You're gonna be fine, man. Just remember, if you want to catch 4 and 5 pounders, you got to stop where you caught them and don't monkey with the other ones.
Yeah.
Unless you're in a dire emergency and need a bite. But you won't be.
All right, back to work, dude. All right.
Good
See you
luck,
later.
man. Good
Be
luck.
in touch. See ya. All right, there he is, Matthew checking in. Oh, by the way, the property taxes, you probably know this. It was mentioned on the comments. Dude, are outrageous in New York.
Yeah, it's New York.
I mean, massive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Dude, by the way, I think he's going to do really, really well. I think he's finally going to get a check this year, and he's really going to put himself in the hunt. He spent a zillion days up there.
Yeah,
He's
but
dialed
it sounds like he's dialed in good.
Yeah, and I want to ask you real quick, and then we'll dive into what you're going to talk about today. I thought about this last night, and yeah, I know you could do a comparison with a lot of people on this, and it's been done over the years. But do you think it is an injustice to the anglers that fish the opens, who make the Elite Series, that the opens have basically unlimited off limits and unlimited information? Because if you do perform well enough to make the Elite Series, Frank, well, guess what? You don't have that anymore. You can't rely on the dial-a-bass or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah, I never relied on that anyway because I think you're better off finding them on your own. But I just think you learn more that way.
Yeah.
But it's culture shock when you go into the elites and then you have 3.5 or 2.5 days of practice. That's culture shock. My first season on the elites, there was a 2-week off limit period. So I went to every lake before the 2-week off limit period and spent some time there fishing it because I'd never seen any of the lakes in my life. So I wanted to, more than anything, learn how to get around because, I mean, sometimes some of the, like Santee Cooper cutting through the back way to get to the other lake was treacherous. But if the weather was bad, you had to go that way. And so I spent a lot of time on those lakes. And then the next time I was on the elites, they said, okay, now there's like this 1 month off limits period. And that was tough because I wasn't dialed in as much, and I only had 2.5 days to dial it in. That was tough. But the thing is a lot of these guys have been going to these lakes forever. Mm-hmm. So the 2.5 days, all you're doing in 2.5 days is establishing a pattern that you could run. Really. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's really the big difference. In the opens, I did the same thing. I spent 7 days on the lake all the time because I just want to learn as much as I could about them because I knew in the elites we would be going back to these places. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to learn as much as I could. And it is a huge huge difference. If you get complacent because you know you've got 7 days to fish or 8 days to fish, and here's something else I found too: the days that I would go for 7 or 8 days, the first 2 days of fishing, that pattern really never held up by the time the tournament came. It was always, it changed.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to be careful, and you had to watch the changes that were taking place as the week was progressing.
Mm-hmm.
But the smallmouth deal, that won't change. Those fish are where they're at, and they're going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, if Matt's catching them like he says,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be fine.
Oh, I agree. He is. I would classify him as totally dialed in. Totally dialed in. Now, let me ask you this. A very well-known Elite Series angler told me one time, he goes, it's kind of like this. When we were discussing this whole off-limit situation, he said, it's kind of like being handed a treasure map in a forest, and you give every single direction on how to find that treasure map. All you got to do is dig and find it. When you have that many days to practice on certain bodies of water, he goes, it's not like that on every lake. But a lot of the lakes that we fish, you spend 10, 14 days on a body of water, you're going to have the treasure map, and you're going to be able to figure it out most of the time. It's just a matter of whether or not you can dig it up. He said, when you make the move to the Elite Series, you get the treasure map, but it doesn't have anything on it because you haven't talked to anybody, you haven't got any information. You're referring back to what knowledge that you might have on that body of water. But you know what? You still got to go out, and you still got to dig, and you still got to find the treasure. And
yeah,
I thought, that's a pretty good sample.
Right. But but it's not as cut and dry as that, because there's guys that, been on those lakes a million times.
Yeah.
And then there's guys that are going to see them for the first time or have only been there twice. It's not the same. The reality of it is that it's not equal for everybody. That was what the big claim was. Well, if it's off limits for everybody, it's equal, but it's not equal.
Because of experience
because
and
of
knowledge?
Experience and knowledge on those bodies of water. So as a new elite angler, if your aspirations are to go to the elites, then you need to, in the time that you're taking to get to the elites, you need to look at their schedules, see where they go a lot, and go to those places. Now, it doesn't matter if, you go to the places in August and they're going to be there in, June, because you're going to explore, you're going to find things, you're going to start to pick up on the nuances of these bodies of water. You just need time on these lakes. Once the pattern emerges, the more time you spend on a body of water, once the pattern emerges, you might know where there's 15 other spots just like that. That's kind of how you have to play it. Because it's not, the off limits doesn't make it equal for everybody. Let's just call it what it is. And then the off limit rule, there's people that push the envelope on that off limit stuff.
Yeah,
so
I get
that's also not equal. Okay.
So are you saying that you are in favor of an off limits rule for the opens and make it the same as the Elite Series, because those that do qualify, that's what they're going to have to deal with?
No, because you can't do that in the opens, because there's a lot of guys that live on those lakes and fish them all the time. Mm-hmm. And so if you do that, you're telling them that they can't fish where they live. And so I don't see how, logistically, I don't see how they can do that in the opens. I have no problems with no off limits in the opens.
Okay.
The only thing that it does to have, 200 guys bombing on this lake for 14 days is change the game, because fishing pressure changes everything. But
even on smallmouth fisheries? The SLR has got pounded.
I'm not done. You're not.
Okay.
You're not giving me.
I know, it's my bad. Sorry.
On those Great Lakes smallmouth fisheries, there is so many places to fish. Okay, it's not as much of a hindrance. But when you go inland, it matters. Okay. It makes a huge difference.
I'm sorry, man.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Somebody's probably going to send me a hate mail. Why are you always walking on Frank?
No, dude, walk away. I don't care. You got to understand.
Let Frank talk. It's day 4, by gosh. You don't need to say a word, Jeffrey. Shut up.
Yeah, whatever, man. It's day 4.
Sorry.
As long as I'm laughing and smiling, there's no problems on day 4, guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I'm not smiling right now. You know why I'm not smiling? Because it's September 2nd, for crying out loud. September sucks.
Everybody is like freaking out over September, and I don't get it. This is the beginning, guys. This is the beginning of the fall transition. Okay. I'm going to talk about this, and we might make this a 2-part show. I don't know yet.
Okay.
But I'm going to talk about how to make your Septembers, and we call it Septembers, but you got to understand, if you live in, Canada or Wisconsin or whatever, way up north, or New York or Maine, September is fall. Okay. So their doldrums are the end of August, where most of the country, most of the United States starts in September. So what I want to do is I want to talk about this fall transition and make it a little bit easier for you guys to actually have success through September. So you stop hating the month of September. And that's what we're doing today. We're not going to hate on September. So should I just go get in it? Mark? Oh, Mark froze up. I'm on my own, guys. All right. Well, this is new for me. I have no co-host or the host. So we're just going to start. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to start with the fall transition, and we're going to talk about September, the first part of September. Okay, so here's what's happening. All right. What's going on is you have these bass are heavy on shad, heavy on the bait fish right now. So what's taking place is they're in a state of movement is what's going on. So what happens is you're still going to have fish offshore. You're going to have fish near offshore. You're going to have fish on the bank, and you're going to have fish between the bank and the offshore stuff. That's why people struggle so much in September. And the patterns are changing daily, sometimes hourly. So here's what I tend to do on during the beginning of September. If I have offshore stuff that I know produce for me in the summer, I'm going to take it and I'm going to fish it. If I have stuff that I know later in the fall where the fish start to migrate, because they'll use the same migration routes that they use in September. I mean, in the spring to go to the spawning areas, they use those same migration routes in September to get there. So I'll start on a couple offshore places, see what's going on. If that's not working out, then I'll go, and if that's not working out, then I go to their migration route to where they're headed to if they were going to spawn. So I'm getting them before they get to the bank. And then I go to where they are when they get on the bank. That's kind of how I fish the beginning of September. The really cool thing about it is I know the fish are on bait, so I'm not really going to slow it down too much. I'm going to offshore, I'm going to stay with the typicals, Carolina rigs, football jigs, crankbaits. As I get near shore, I'm going to go, crankbaits, stay with some moving baits. And then once I get to the bank, I'll throw square bills, swim jigs, and flipping and pitching. And that's kind of what I do. So you just got to remember, you're going to need a lot of equipment because you don't know what you're going to encounter. And if you stay loose and stay versatile, you're going to have a lot more success in the beginning of September. Like here's a perfect example. I'm doing a square bill show, Norman Fat Boy. And I went out yesterday to see if I could find fish on the square bill. I didn't know if there was going to be enough available to do that. But I didn't bring any of my offshore stuff with me. In fact, all I did was I threw 2 boxes of square bills in the boat and 2 cranking rods or 3 cranking rods in the boat. And because I didn't want the in the back of my head, I'd rather be offshore. So I didn't want that option because I needed to find places that I could catch them. Well, it turns out I wound up catching over 20 yesterday. None of them deeper than 4 feet. And that's the beginning of September. Now, what scares me about this, and this is why people get goofy on this month, I can go back tomorrow to film the show and those fish could be gone. That's the problem with September. Okay. So by having all my other stuff, because I'm actually going to load the boat up. I'm not going to pin myself down because I could, if they're not doing the square bill thing, then I'll back off until I find them again. Mm-hmm. But that's really kind of the beginning of September. You know what I'm saying? You just got to remember the patterns are ever changing. You have to remain versatile. And that's the beginning of the month. I'm debating whether to continue on to the end of the month or save it for another day. But
make it a part 2.
All right, we could make it a part 2.
Yeah. All right. Once again, the power went out. That's why I went away.
I know. So. It kind of freaked me out because like I was on my own.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Yeah. And this is the first time I've ever, had to fly solo.
Yeah. Sorry about that. If it goes out again, we've had this problem all week, and it's going to continue.
If it goes out again, I'm leaving.
No. I won't interrupt you anymore, man. I'm sorry.
No, you go. You go.
All right. Here's a question, real quick, Frank. Are the fish gone, or still in the vicinity?
They have to be in the vicinity somewhere. Okay, that's the big deal. They have to be in the vicinity somewhere. That's why I always preach about structure fishing. Even if you're on the bank, the contour lines are critical because what happens is if they vacate the shoreline, they have to pull to some place. So if everything you're doing is based on your contour lines, you have a pretty good idea where they're going to go. Because they're not going to go 5 miles away to some obscure offshore rock pile. They're just going to be within that vicinity. And the other thing I said was the bait fish. So what happens in the beginning of September, that wind is important. Because the wind, the bait's going to go where the plankton goes, and the wind's going to push the plankton. So you want to concentrate on the windy stuff. Because that's where most of the bait's going to be piled up. And you'll see it happen. One day you'll go out, it'll be windy. You're catching them all on windy points or steeper windy rock banks. And then all of a sudden the next day is slick flat and all the bait's dimpling around. You see bait dimpling everywhere and you can barely catch a bass. Because the bait's everywhere, so the bass kind of spread out and do their thing. You know what I mean? It's you could pay attention to the nature, the wildlife, and you can figure a lot of stuff out that way.
All right. I have to ask this question. I don't care. It's a greedy question. Why is the topwater bite not exceptional in September for the most part?
Well, it can be. It can be. But as you get later into the month, when that water temperature starts to decrease, it gets better. Now, the other thing, too, don't forget, our days are getting shorter, too. Before the water temperature even starts to drop enough to make a difference, our days are getting shorter. Bass move on the lengths of days. Just like in the springtime, the bass are coming shallow as the days start to get longer. They don't know that the shallow's 10 degrees warmer. It's just that the days are starting to get longer, so their biological clock's telling them where to go. Same thing happens in the fall. The days start to get shorter, the bait fish start to migrate, and the bass are doing the same thing. That's the real key. But later in the month, that topwater bite can be astronomical, especially when you start to lose degrees in water. When you start to have 4 or 5 degree drop in water temperature, things are going to start to cycle and turn around, and that topwater bite's going to get hot.
All right. So what about this? And forgive me, folks, for trying to dive into the whole topwater thing. But in the month of September, how much does the noise that the topwater make does that really matter? Do you need a loud, like a one knocker or whatever, or do you want something that is very subtle from a topwater perspective when you're in this fall transition?
Yeah, subtlety can be very good right now. The bait fish are, moving. You don't see them; they're just milling around. They're smaller. You want a more subtle presentation. The time to go, loud and proud is when you got wind. When the wind dissipates, you want to be super subtle, because if you watch bait fish move, they just make little waves on the water. They're not, you know what I'm saying? But in the hard wind, and when you get good ripples on the water, then you need something that's going to pow, 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 move some water around.
All right, because I remember, I don't know how many years ago, and I think I still got a couple over on the pegs or upstairs in the mezzanine. There was a bait that was one of the most subtle baits that I can remember from a topwater. It wasn't like a popar or a popper or a spook that didn't have rattles in it. It was very, very subtle. And I was perusing the paint shop, all right, trying to check out what you had going on. And here, let me see if I can pull it up. Hang on.
You got to be talking about a head bait, obviously.
I don't even remember what it was called. Hang on. Let's see here.
Pull it up before your electricity goes out.
I know. Hang on. Okay. So I got the paint shop up. It was right there. A spitting image.
Yeah,
and
dude.
That looked like some color that I hadn't even seen before.
Yeah, that color is called Washita Shad. I love that color, actually. I want it in a crankbait bad. Yeah, that's a very subtle topwater bait, actually. That thing that's old. That's an old bait.
I remember when it came out, it was like a hot item, but then it kind of faded because everybody was using other things. And then when I was at the paint shop and I saw that, I was like, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, the subtlety on this bait is a real sexy bait. The subtlety on it is great for, especially on those super slick days, when you can see bait fish milling around and you don't want something real loud and obnoxious on them. That's a fantastic bait. The irony of that bait is it casts really well also. It's a really good casting bait. Now with this bait, I fish this bait, but I have a very small window when I fish this bait. And like I said, it's usually in the flatter, calmer areas. It's dynamite on schooling fish too, because as slow and subtle as you can make it go, you can skip and skate and pop this thing across the surface like a fleeing bait fish. So that's another good attribute to it. I know a lot of buddies of mine, they fish hybrids and they swear by that bait because
Really?
they can just make it do crazy stuff on it.
Huh.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
It's been around forever though.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, like the 90s maybe.
Yeah, that's
when it first came out.
Absolutely, and it's still here, which tells you that people are buying the dang thing. You know what I mean? It's still here. It's a good bait. That's a really good bait.
Cool color. What's that called?
Washita Shad, I believe.
Right
yeah, I see it. I see the name, Washita Shad. I'll tell you right now, I want that color in a crankbait. I want that color in a crankbait in a bad way.
Well, it's a cool paint job.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, hence, me being the topwater guy, that's why I asked about, do you need to be noisy in September or do you need to be subtle?
Actually, that's great. That's great. That's a great question, because here at the end of September too turns into buzzbait season. If you talk about noisy, the end of September when the topwater bite starts to go, buzzbaits start to come into play too. And then of course, when you're looking on your grass lakes that actually still have grass in them, Then you're talking about your topwater, tip-toed and horny toad type baits. So yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, but that goes back to what I said about make sure that you're versatile this time of year.
Yeah.
Because you can't ignore things, because a lot of things are in play right now. We'll get into part 2 when everything starts to stabilize and get really predictable.
All right, so let me ask you this. The first part of September, what we're in some areas of the country, it's still smoking hot. I mean, it's still 90, 95 degrees. You don't really have that drop in water temp.
No.
What do you do, let's say, like here in Oklahoma, on Monday, the holiday, and on Sunday, there is a cold front coming through, and the high is only going to be 82.
Only 82.
Only 82. And the lows are going to be down in the upper 50s, lower 60s. That's pretty cold for this time of the year.
Yeah, but that's what you want, man. That's what you want.
When you do, and I've admitted it numerous times, I mean, I hate September. When you're trying to battle the demons of previous adventures in the month of September, when you get that first cooling spell, and this may not be the first one, this is just kind of a cold front that just happened to be coming through in the first part of September. What would you suggest? Should I and the fans out there have like a limit on the number of things that you really want to try? Obviously based upon the body of water that you're fishing. But is it better to have 4 options rather than trying to go out there and do 10 different things, but focus on those 4 options and see if those 4 options work?
Look, I got lucky yesterday, okay, because the square bill bite worked. When I got to the lake's a great offshore lake that I was on, and it had grass. And when I got to the lake, a lot of the deeper grass lines were gone. The grass was gone. The water was off color, and it was blowing like a hurricane. Okay. So obviously I went to the wind, and it paid off. If I was practicing for like a tournament or something, I would not limit myself to 4 techniques, because you don't know what you're going to encounter. I could almost guarantee you, if I had my deep diving crankbaits and my Carolina rigs, I would have absolutely throttled them yesterday. Because that's just this time of year, dude. It's really late summer. I mean, we're going to call it beginning of fall, but it's really late summer, especially below the Mason-Dixon line, when you're still having 90-degree days and 80-degree days. The only thing that's making these fish go right now is the days are getting shorter. So now these fish are starting to do their thing based on the amount of sunlight that they have. I would never limit myself in September to 4 techniques.
Okay.
No way. There's no way.
All right.
And here's the other thing. I've seen it a million times where the pattern changes during the day. I've seen it a million times. Well, Roy, how you start out is not how you finish. So, you got to just be very versatile, be loose in your thinking, and don't rule anything out, because you will find fish offshore. You'll find fish offshore, things that are connected to the mainland, and you'll find fish on the bank. That's just how this time of year goes. And we're not talking, guys, about Great Lakes smallmouth fisheries.
Okay.
Because they are completely different. What you find now will be there for a long time. We're not talking about Great Lakes smallmouth. We're only talking about inland lakes. I had to preface that.
All right. So once again, I'm being greedy. And you might have mentioned this during my power outage that I was away, but I really want to know, how much does the bait fish play in the early transition from summer to fall?
Critical.
And how much of an impact does sun or clouds play in this transition?
Okay. Bait fish is everything. It's everything from now until winter. Those fish are on bait so hard right now that the bait is everything. which I did mention a little earlier when you were, taking your vacation.
Sorry.
You don't know. I have like anxiety right now because I'm waiting for you to disappear, and then I'm on my own again. So I'm having like a little small amount of anxiety here.
Hopefully we're good.
Yeah, the bait fish is critical. I can't impress upon that fact enough. When you get into summer, the bass are already on bait. When the bass go offshore, they're on bait. Okay. As fall progresses into late fall and early winter, bait is even more critical. So yeah, you have to be cognizant of that. If I see bait, I know I'm in the right place. If I don't see bait, I'm not in the right place. And yesterday I saw bait. When I was casting and I'd rip that thing, I'd see the bait go. So I knew I was in the right zone. I know tomorrow's going to be different.
It's September, man. Come on.
Exactly.
Hey, all right. So if you do throw a settle topwater like the spin image, what's the setup? Does it change? Do you go to a smaller diameter line? What is the best way to get the best action out of that bait?
No, I'll fish it the same way. On that particular bait, I use braid, but I'll put a mono leader on the braid. I'll put a 3 or 4 foot section of mono leader on it, just to keep I just want a little bit of distance so I can just tweak that thing around. If I go crane swivel split ring, because it comes with a split ring. Yeah. If I go crane swivel on that, I use a smaller crane swivel. I don't want to add any nose weight to the bait. You can use a speed clip on that too without the swivel. That's fine too. Tail feather hooks on it. I've done both. Doesn't hurt the action at all. I've done both and I've caught them on both. But I tie my tail feathers super sparse. I don't have a lot of feathers. I only use 3, and I use the feathers that you can see through. So like if I put the feather up against a piece of paper, I could read the writing behind the feather. Yeah. If it's too thick, I don't use it. That's just me. I'm like a lunatic.
All right. I'm going to switch gears here in this transition because a staple during the summertime is a big worm, a 10-inch worm, 11-inch worm.
Oh, yeah.
When should you put that thing away? And Frank, I've heard people that have told me, don't ever put that thing away.
Yeah, it's one of those deals, dude, where I've had really, really, really big days with 10-inch plastic, and 8-inch plastic. Really big days. I always will try to fish a little faster and if I'm not catching them good, then I'll slow down with that. But even because this time of year, you're still going to throw the Carolina rig. You're still going to throw big cranks. It'd be nothing to put a 10-inch worm on a Carolina rig. Heck, I used to do that all the time, especially below the Mason-Dixon line where I know that these lakes are just chock full of giants. But here's a funny thing too. I've caught 10-inch bass on 10-inch worms. I mean, they're gluttons, dude. They're just opportunistic predators. If it's moving down there, they're going to take a nip at it. They don't have hands to feel if it's, real or alive. They gotta basically put it in their mouth to know if it's something edible or not.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't hesitate.
Whether it's a piece of plastic that's a little over an inch or 10 or 11 inches, they're still going to buy. But don't you agree? Over time, that's kind of been a staple for this time of the year when the water temp gets hot. But it's kind of like the jerkbait. We've talked about that, where a lot of people, as soon as the spawn gets here, a lot of people will just throw it in the tackle box and never bring it out. But yet, we saw KVD. We've seen several other people do incredible damage on a jerkbait. Even during the month of May and June. So when you do have this fall transition, you can still fish And I know what the trend is. The trend is small.
Yeah, I don't.
But does it get lost in that theory that it's September, you got to put the 10-inch worm away?
Yeah, no, that's kind of goofy. The thing is you guys got to realize something. Your versatility factor is going to be paramount right now for your success in this time of the year.
Okay.
That doesn't mean get goofy and try, obscure craziness. If your lake catches, if the lake you're on 10-inch worms have been good in the summertime, then yes, you do it. Let the fish tell you they don't want it, then gear down. I mean, I'm addicted to crawbaits on my Carolina rig too. I have when I'm offshore fishing, I'll have 3, sometimes 4 Carolina rigs out, and I'll have the big worm on one, I'll have a lizard on one, and I'll have crawbaits. Like that spine craw and the money craw have been amazing for me. And so I'll fish those always. Like those are always on my Carolina rig rod because I know that I catch fish on them everywhere I'm at. So that's my confidence go-to. But I'm the first one that if I'm not getting bit, or maybe I'm catching a few, I'm the first one to go big or go home. You know what I mean? Because you got to keep them honest. I mean, when I was on Old Hickory one time, I was Carolina rigging a 6-inch lizard, and I was catching some on it. And Chris Daves was smashing the crap out of them. And I'm like, dude, I'm rigging too. What's up? He goes, dude, I'm throwing a 10-inch worm. And I was like, where's my head at? Because on Wiley, that was like money, dude. The 10-inch worm was money. And why I didn't transfer that to Old Hickory is beyond me. That was my bad. You know what I mean? So you have to keep an open mind. You can't forget about anything.
All right. Another question here from Joseph. What water temp will the bass start moving shallow in the fall? Well,
here's what I'm going to tell you. It's the length of the days that start to put them up there.
Yeah.
They don't know. The bass that are offshore don't know it's cooling down up in the shallows yet. It's the length of the days. The water temperature that I had yesterday, I think was 80. It was 80 something degrees, 82. And I was catching them no deeper than 4 feet. So it's the length of the days that are starting to put them up there. And don't forget the bait fish are starting to move now.
Yeah. I was thinking about something else when you mentioned the lizard. Do you still throw a lizard in the fall in this stage?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, if you go to my boat right now and open it up, you'll see 3 Carolina rigs rigged. You'll see a 6-inch lizard, a yum spine craw, and a yum money craw.
Okay.
The lizard is money, dude. It's a money bait.
Once again, the perception, you just use that in the springtime.
No. Well, you guys could keep throwing it in the spring. That's cool for me. That's very good for me, Wow. But that's really it, just keep an open mind. Next Thursday we'll probably dive into the end of the September, but that things are going to get good, dude. They're going to start to stable out. Bass are going to start to become way more predictable. It's going to be good. And then I have an announcement I want to try to make, but I have to see if I can make it next Thursday or not. You guys are going to be thrilled. I'm thrilled.
So you're teasing the tease.
I'm teasing the tease because I'm losing my marbles. I'm so happy right now because, this is a big tease. I'm just so happy right now. I can't stand it.
Okay. All right. Well, I could guess, but I don't even want to go down that path.
You could guess. If you guess, I'll say yes.
Are you coming out with your own line of rods? Because you talk about pal rods all the time.
No. No. Okay, here. I'm not coming out with my own line of rods, and I am not going back on tour. but
Okay.
at least for now.
Hey, here's an interesting question. Hang on here. Let me throw it up. Is there always a group of fish offshore, or at some point do they all come up shallow?
Yeah, that's actually a born to fish. That is a good question. There's always fish somewhere out there. It might be near shore. I can tell you this, that when the fish, it's just like right after the spawn, and you go fish your summer stuff and there's nothing there yet.
Yeah.
Those fish all came in to spawn. In the fall, there's a vast majority, high percentage majority of fish that will move in to the shallows running bait. There's still going to be some deep bait, and there's still going to be some fish offshore, even throughout the fall. But you're fishing for percentages. You want to put the percentages in your hands. So you need to go where the most of the fish mass is.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to say there's no fish going to be offshore is it's a bunch of crap, because there will be fish offshore, but you're looking for a needle in a haystack at that point. So you always want to keep the percentages in your favor when you fish. The idea is to catch fish. So you got to stay where the most mass of fish is during those seasonal patterns. I can tell you instances and show you where the fish lie to you every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's always some fish offshore. There's always fish shallow. I've caught fish cracking ice in my boat to get out, and caught fish in 2 feet of water in the middle of January. So there's fish that break rules. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just have to stay where the meat of the fish are at.
Yeah. Interesting. The buffet. Were you a buffet guy when you were out on tour, dude? Did you hit the buffet?
No, I was very picky. I was very picky about the food I ate on tour, because I had gotten food poisoning early on in my career 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And I literally spent 3 days of my 2.5 days of practice in bed a couple times, and got up in the morning for the tournament and was sick as a dog through the whole tournament. So I said, there's no more of that crap. I ate very well when I was on tour. I made sure of it, because I made absolute sure of it. I went to this one place. I'll tell you something. You guys will freak out, because I lost my mind. I fished until dark, and on the way back, and I'm not going to say where it is, on the way back to the room, there was a diner/restaurant open. So I whipped in there, and I was starving to death, man. So I said, what can they not possibly ruin? So I got a fried chicken basket. All right. Couple chunks of breast meat, couple legs, some French fries, and a salad.
Okay.
Can't screw that up. So I grab that chicken, and I am like a savage, because I am starving. Well, I got half of the thing eaten, and I bit into it, and I felt something cold.
Oh.
And the inside was still frozen and raw. Okay.
Oh,
so let me tell you, everyone makes fun of me, because I cut all of my food now with a knife and fork, and everybody makes fun of me, and I'm like, no way. After that, I am not biting into anything until I see what it is before I put it in my mouth. No way, no how. I was so ill. No.
Yeah. Frank, I'll tell you this. What I remember, a couple of guys that were great friends, still are great friends, and one of them actually weighs like 160 pounds now. 2 guys back in the day that could actually put a hurt on a buffet. Peter T.
and
Kenyon Hill.
Oh, yeah, well, don't forget about Dion either.
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
I went out to eat with those guys a lot, and man alive, dude, I've never seen I've never seen this in my entire life. I mean, they talked me into going into a surf and turf buffet one time.
Yeah. Damage was done.
Damage was done in a way that is like unprofitable for any restaurant.
The manager came out.
I was like, holy smokes, you guys are crazy eating all that food. You know what I mean? It's like, I've never seen people eat like that in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an eye opener. I was laughing. I actually laughed. I said, you guys, you could go back to the buffet. You don't have to, have 15 steaks on a plate. You can actually go back and get another plate. But yeah, Kenyon trimmed down. I saw him at the Classic. I didn't even I mean, I recognize him because I know him good.
Yeah.
But he looks fantastic right now, dude.
Yeah, he's like 150, 160, running a very, very successful tire and repair business here in Norman and doing quite well. Married his high school sweetheart.
Perfect. He's killing it, dude. He is killing it. Yeah.
All right. Another question from the comments. Let me throw it up here. Will the fish be easier to target up in the river on a highland reservoir than on the main lake during this transition period?
Yeah, they're more predictable up the river. 100% more predictable. They're definitely going to be bank related, and if they're running water, they're going to be current. The current's going to help you immensely. The river will get better as fall progresses too, because a lot of fish will migrate up the river because a lot of the bait fish are going up there. So yeah, I mean, the river systems are really a high percentage area right now.
All right, Frank, hypothetical question, because I think this is going to be the situation that we're going to see next week in the Open that Matt is fishing in. We've seen it in a lot of tournaments that have been on the SLR.
They're going to kill them.
As an angler, is it more frustrating? This is actually a hypothetical question of which it's actually happened. Is it more frustrating to go out and catch 16 and 17 pounds all day long? You just were not able to catch those two key fish in the 5 to 5.5, 6 pound range. Is that more frustrating in that type of event than a tournament where 15 pounds is a great event and you went out and scraped 10 in a tough event? Which one is more frustrating as a guy or girl that's on the water trying to make things happen in two very different events?
Well, where those guys are, 1 or 2 4-pounders isn't going to mean crap. They're going to need 5. And they're going to catch 5. They're going to catch 5 between 4 and 6 pounds.
The whole field is. I will be shocked if the field.
No, I'll bet you 3/4 of the field has 15 pounds. And I'll bet you the top echelon will all be 20 or better. That's just how that place is fishing. The grind fest that you said when people are when you need 15 pounds and you have 10.
Yeah.
They're both frustrating to me because that means I failed. So they both bother me equally.
Yeah.
But
don't you have the more ability to rally on day 2 when it's a grind compared to when it's a swing fest, though?
Bar none. Let's talk about a grinder for a minute. A grinder, you can have a good day 2 on a grinder, and it could turn you into a hero.
Yeah.
Okay. You have one bad day on a slugfest and you're out because you can never catch them. You can't catch up because they will consistently have, 20 to 24 pounds a day consistently.
Yeah.
So here's a general rule of thumb, which does not apply on the smallmouth fisheries, by the way. You double the weight for day 2. And you subtract 2 pounds, and that's about where you need to get money. Okay?
Okay.
But on a place like St. Lawrence, you're going to double the weight on day 2 and add 2.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to need to get money. So if the money cut on day 2 is 40 pounds, you gotta have, you're going to have 62 pounds by day 3.
Yeah. A couple of comments, including Junior. The subject of luck has come up, and when you have these type of tournaments like what you have on the SLR, my thought is luck is earned, because just like what Matt said earlier, yeah, he's found some areas that have produced bigger fish. How can you put what effort that you've put into it during your practice period and apply it to where luck is earned? That's kind of my theory. I want to know what your theory is on luck.
Luck, you have more of a chance of being successful with luck in a one-day tournament or a grinder. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a grinder and it's going to take 15 pounds or something, and you go out and catch a 6-pounder, that 6-pounder is a lucky fish. Okay, especially if all you're catching is 2-pounders. That 6-pounder is a lucky fish. When you're talking about these massive smallmouth fisheries, it's like early in the show, Matt was asking about, how do you assure yourself of not coming in with 14 or 15 pounds when everybody's catching 20 plus? Well, that's easy. You don't fish places where you're not catching 4 and 5-pounders, because you can do that on a smallmouth fishery. Every Lake Erie tournament that I ever hit, I don't even stop on places unless they're 4-pounders. I don't even stop on them because I can't use them. They're not going to help me. You follow me?
Yeah.
And so consequently what happens is I might go from catching 30 fish a day to catching 15 fish a day. But at least I know those 15 are going to put me over the 20-pound mark.
Yeah.
And I don't care. It's not a numbers game unless you're fishing, the BPT. It's not a numbers game. A 5-fish heavy bag is about catching 5 big ones. So you're not playing the numbers, you're playing the weight. And then you use your C+ spots and your D spots to fill a limit if you're desperate. But it's like this, if you go like here, so they brought up luck. I'll tell you something lucky. I had some C+ D spots on the Great Lakes where they were 2.5-pounders. Okay. And I'm not even looking at them in the tournament. Well, I had time. I had a pretty good bag going, and I was blowing by this spot, and my non-boater needed some fish. And I said, this is a perfect place to let him catch his limit or fill his limit out.
Yeah.
And he'll be happy. And we pulled up on there, dude. And I called with a 5-something. That was a lucky fish. Because usually on these smallmouth fisheries, you don't have 4s and 5s mixed with 2s. They generally hang out by size class. And so that 5-pounder was a lucky fish.
Okay.
Lucky for me.
All right, man. We're going to wrap it up. Let me ask you a couple more questions. And then today is picture day, man. I'm all dressed up.
Okay, you got to, dude, smile pretty.
It's picture day.
Make sure your hair's combed and smile pretty.
Yeah. All right. A lot of juice about the transition. We're going to do a part 2 on this.
Yeah,
transition
we have
from
to.
summer to fall in the month of September. But to sum things up, and there have been a lot of comments, a lot of questions. Hopefully we've asked or we've had questions asked that people were wanting answers for, specifically about this transition period. If you had to sum it up and throw out just one piece of juice to give people during this early transition period, what would that be?
100% bait.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta realize something. You're gonna catch fish offshore still right now, but that bite is gonna start to wane. Okay.
Yeah.
So the piece of advice that I can give you is, if you have places offshore that you've been consistently catching fish in the summer, check them first. If you're not doing as good on them, then you got to start working your way towards the bank. And here, there's going to be fish on the bank, and there's going to be fish offshore, and there's going to be fish somewhere in between. The bait is going to give you a really good idea where you need to be.
All right. Good stuff there. And then finally, I forgot. I was going to ask you, the stuff that's on the paint shop, is that always a limited run? In other words, that color, what was it?
Washita shad.
Like that one that we talked about earlier, is that limited to 300?
Yes.
Is it always limited to 300?
Yeah, all the paint shop runs are a limited number. That's why I get bombarded with, DMs about how, and I feel bad, but I went to get these things and they were gone. But that doesn't mean they won't show up again. It's just they're limited numbers because most of them are paint schemes that are not in the normal lineup.
Okay.
So it is a limited. Now that doesn't mean they won't show up in the lineup next year.
Yeah, that's the other question. Have you had stuff that has been in the paint shop that has moved on the pegboard?
Some of the Norman speed end colors we transferred into the deep little ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. People are wanting to know where to get the T-shirt you're wearing.
You could go to LureNet and go under Norman Lures. When you have a brand logo, click on the brand logo and go into Norman Lures.
All right.
And you'll be able to find apparel. Under all those brands on LureNet, you can find some type of apparel.
All right. Cool stuff, man. Do you stay at home during the long weekend? We got a holiday weekend on Monday.
I do not fish this weekend. It is the most annoying thing on earth where I live. It's like, since COVID hit, during the week has been like weekends, and weekends have been like holidays.
Yeah.
And traditionally this weekend is like, for some reason, the pleasure boaters have in their mind that this is the last weekend they can go on a lake. And so they hit the lake by the thousands.
Yeah.
It's amateur hour this weekend. I don't go near the water.
No, I'm with you, man. Once again, take a lawn chair, pop open a beverage, have a video camera nearby. You can get some epic video, dude.
And watch the follies. Watch the follies unfold.
I know. You really can. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up day 4 with Frank. As always, some tremendous juice was getting up here on Frank. So we will have part 2 on the transition here in the month of September. My favorite month to go bass fishing.
It's going to be everybody's favorite month.
Yeah, good stuff. Part 2 next week. All right, have a great holiday weekend. We will be back on Tuesday. Gene Gilliland in studio on Tuesday. We're going to talk fish care. We're going to talk whatever you want to talk to Gene about, the conservation director for BASS and long time fisheries biologist. So some good stuff headed your way next week. And then obviously Frank back on Thursday. So dude, great stuff today.
Thank you.
I like the subtleness. I'm not very subtle. If you can tell.
You're not. You are not the spitting image of the podcast world.
I'm not very subtle. So maybe I need to become a little more subtle. We'll see. All right, dude. Enjoy the weekend. We will be back on Tuesday, folks. Everybody have a very, very, very fun day off on Monday, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday. That's it. We're out of here.